If you own an XT-50 like me or are considering to purchase one, then this is an interesting video for you. Because in this video, we will be discussing about the number of buttons, dials and swipe switches that are actually there on a XT-50. And let me tell you, there are a good amount of them. And once you start customizing them as per your photography or videography or content making needs, then this becomes a potent weapon of creating digital content for you. Namaskar, peeps. This is Harisha from Melbourne.yathri. This is an unsponsored video. Please do consider to subscribe to my channel, give a like, and if you have any comments, please do post down below. The XT-50 is a very potent tool in trying to capture digital content as long as you are behind the camera or you have someone else behind the camera, because the LCD display would not actually flip out in a traditional vlogging style. Apart from that, this is an amazing camera. A quick recap of how powerful this camera is. It hosts a 40 megapixel crop sensor. Yes, a 40 megapixel crop sensor. It's not a full frame sensor, it's not a medium format sensor. Fujifilm either creates crop sensors or they have medium format sensors. They don't have full frame sensors as far as I know. Not only that, it also allows you to take 6.2K video at 30 frames per second, 25 or 24 frames per second, based on whether you're an NTSC or PAL, and also allows you to shoot on DCI 4K as well as 4K up to 60 frames per second, everything to the internal SD card. You need not run any external SSDs or anything like that. You can also shoot all intra, which they call it as a HQ mode inside the XT-50, and you can shoot both 4K as well as DCI 4K in HQ mode. Not only this has a 7-stop IBS inbuilt into it, courtesy to the 40 megapixel crop sensor. In addition to all of this whole package is roughly around 450 grams of weight just for the body. And if you add a very good lens like this one, the XF 16-50mm lens, this becomes a solid content creation tool right in your hand, and you can shoot right from different type of photos as well as videos, along with Fujifilm's beautiful 20+ simulations already pre-baked into the camera. The XT-50 has 11 buttons, including the lens release button. It has 5 dials, including 2 special dials which also have a button function inbuilt into them, in addition to those 11 buttons that I've said before, and it has 3 toggle dials on the camera. That's a lot of buttons, dials and toggle switches. In comparison, my A6700 has only around 10 or 11 buttons on top of it, maybe only 3 or 4 dials, and nothing much more than that. Let's understand these 11 buttons, 5 dials and 3 toggle switches so that you can create a muscle memory of your camera, and next time when you whip it out from your bag, you're not trying to figure out what is where. You can start directly capturing your memories or content. Let's understand the buttons in it. The 11 buttons. The first one, the most simplest one, is the lens release one. You actually press this and twist the lens and it would actually come out, but once you twist it back, when the lens goes back to its original space, then it basically clicks back in. The most obvious of the buttons is the shutter button. Yes, just like any other Fujifilm fanboy, I've bought the red shutter button accessory for my shutter button and I've actually installed on it. If you're interested to see the minimum accessories that are needed for XT-50, I'll actually go ahead and place the card up here. You can click on it. There is also a link posted in the description for you to click and watch that video. Moving on from there, so you have another button here which is the function button. So this XT-50 actually has 2 function buttons. 2 buttons which are straightforwardly used to program to whatever you actually want as a function. In addition to that, you also have other buttons on this which you can reprogram and use it the way you would actually like to. Moving on from there, you actually have function button number 2 right here. The cool thing about the XT-50 is you do not have a dial mode wheel actually on top of it. The dial mode wheel is actually replaced by a film emulation wheel, where you can switch the wheel across and then see the different type of film emulations from Fujifilm actually applied on your photo or video. So when you press the drive button, you actually have all the drives that come in there. So you actually have single shot, you have a multi-shot, and all the other things that would actually come down on there. Now you can navigate through all these drive buttons by using the 5-way joystick which is actually up here. Adjacent to the drive button is where you actually have your media display button. You click on it, whatever the photos, videos you've actually taken, you can try to have a preview of that. Then the next button below that is your menu button. This is how you would actually access the menu of your XT-50 and try to do all your settings actually in there. Is what you actually have is the display button. So if you press the display button, you can see you're toggling through multiple displays, and you can also see the reflection, the screen of my A7 Mark IV in a funny way. There we go. So these are the 11 buttons on the XT-50. Now we will see in detail what each of this button does, okay, in the upcoming videos, because I'll be making a separate video for each one of them, so it's easy for you to watch, and the short videos actually up there. Moving on to the dials that are there on the XT-50, right in the front itself, you're actually having the front dial. Okay. Now this is not only a front dial, a secret to be told, it's also a push button, and it actually works in a very interesting way in a couple of modes. When you're actually shooting in particular modes, when you press on this dial, it'll actually allow you to switch between either adjusting your shutter speed or your ISO in the camera. Very interesting, right? So this back dial is not only a dial, but is also a push button switch, if you can see this. In this particular mode, it's actually the ISO, and you can start, changing your ISO values up and down. Having said that, on the top of the XT-50, you actually have 3 dials. 1, 2, 3. The leftmost dial, as I was stating earlier, is your film emulation dial. So you can go from standard to vivid to sepia to what you call classic Reala Ace to negative. Now if you want to know the number of standard film emulation modes which are already there on this dial, the film emulation dial, and how does it actually impact a photo or video, please watch my 3 months review of XT-50. I'm going to place a card here and also put the link in the description, and that will clearly show you with example photos and video of how each film emulation is going to look when you're looking towards the camera. So in this classic design of XT-50, this is your shutter dial. Now you can choose all the way from bulb to 1 in 4,000 of a second using the shutter dial. Not only that, fun quick quirk about it is that, say for example you want to do you're shooting video at 50 frames per second, 4K, to do a slow-mo, all you have to do is dial this to 125, and then either you can leave it at 125, but if you want to precisely dial into 50, so you can use the dial switch on the back to reduce it from 125 to 100, and there we go. Very quick and easy way of doing it. Yes, because this is a hybrid camera, you do not actually have a shutter angle in this camera, which is fair enough, but you can actually manipulate your shutter value very quickly in an XT-50 just by using the shutter dial and by using one of the dials programmed for shutter value and reaching to your 180 degrees rule, so that you can get that cinematic motion blur in your videos. Now moving on from there, the last dial on the right is actually the exposure dial, so you can actually expose from 0 all the way to +3. There is also a C, which is a custom exposure dial, not used that much now. Pretty much oscillate between +1 to -1. That's where I am actually most of the times. Now, if you find at any moment of time that you do not want to hassle around with your shutter values, that means you want to go in aperture mode. In most of the Fujifilm classic design cameras like these XT-50, your aperture value is normally changed by moving the ring on the camera, this aperture ring on the camera. There's an XF lens, so you can easily see, you can easily move values on this, and you also have a button right here. Now this button allows you to either keep it as an auto aperture or you can keep it as manual aperture. That's totally a choice. So you can always take the camera and put it in manual aperture, and then you actually have your shutter dial all the way moved to A. Once your shutter dial is actually moved all the way to A and your aperture is actually then manual aperture, then all you're trying to do is using the aperture wheel and trying to change the aperture number. So literally you're in aperture priority. Say for example you want to basically film in shutter mode or SS mode or shutter priority mode. In that case, then you would actually change your aperture from manual to auto. So now this wheel is not doing much of the job, so the aperture value is determined by the camera itself. But then you would move your shutter dial to any of the shutter value that you're looking for. Now you're trying to manipulate the shutter value of the camera, trying to fix your exposure and start taking actually images or film. If you do not want to do any of these and hey, I just want to go in auto mode, click, 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 because I am basically in a zoo or in a particular place where I do not have the bandwidth to start seeing how my exposure triangle looks like and start correcting them. Very, very simple, and this is where I love the XT-50. In many cameras which are actually having drive dials, you literally have to pass through 4 or 5 knobs to actually achieve that. But in an XT-50, it's very simple. This toggle switch, which is there along with the shutter dial, all you have to do is just move it to auto, and that's it. Now the whole camera is in auto mode. So it's auto aperture, it's auto shutter speed, and all you're trying to do is play a little bit with the ISO values. Again, sometimes you can also throw the ISO actually in auto, which makes your life pretty easy, and all you're doing is concentrating and capturing the content and the movements rather than trying to figure out constantly your exposure triangle. Having said that, this is my most favorite button on this entire camera, the Q button. Now this Q button gives you very quick menu. This is a programmable quick menu, so that means you can actually have the icons exactly where you want, and at the same time which functionalities would come up out there and which functionalities would not be there. And this quick menu would change between if you're in the video mode or if you're in the photo mode. So you have two different quick menus actually up there. And then also the functionalities that you can actually select in the quick menu would actually change depending whether you're actually in the photo mode or you're actually in the video mode. To change values in the quick menu, you can either touch them and start changing them, or you could go ahead and use your back wheel to change them and press and select them. Or even more simply, you can just use your joysticks to actually select them and change those values. Now, after seeing all this, you might be actually asking, Harish, okay, this is all fine, but how do I change my different focus modes? I mean, is there a way I can actually do like a manual focus? You can do a single shot or a continuous focus in this? Yes, you can. And you have a toggle switch for it. And very, very conveniently, something like my G9 Mark I actually used to have, Fujifilm in its classic design has it here, right here in the left bottom. So this would actually toggle from your manual mode, which is up here, to continuous focus, and then you have single focus. I normally leave my camera at continuous focus because that's the type of focus I actually prefer, because in continuous focus, wherever you're actually moving your camera, whether you have half pressed your shutter button or not, camera is continuously trying to adjust its focus and always try to capture the subject. Machine learning based algorithms that are there in the XT-50, yes, your XT-50 actually comes with some machine learning programs which they marketed as AI, but in my personal humble opinion, because I understand the difference between AI and machine learning, these are actually machine learning models. That means the powerful X processor 4, which is actually there inside the XT-50, complementing the 40 megapixel high resolution CMOS sensor, which is also BSI imaging actually inbuilt into the XT-50. It actually has those mathematical models in it to go ahead and recognize humans, animals, trains, and a couple of other models, and that's pretty much actually advantageous to you. I have till now only used humans, animals, and cars, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, cars or planes, and that's pretty much good enough for me if you ask me. And that's something that you can easily cycle across. So I would prefer to keep it in continuous. Some people who actually prefer to take images always and no video would keep it in S. That is the single one. That means only it'll focus when the shutter button is pressed half. Otherwise there is no focusing done by the camera continuously. But I would prefer to keep it in continuous because being a hybrid content generator, I don't know when I'm going to take a photo or video. Whatever looks interesting, I would switch between photo and video, so C is good for me. After all this, there is one hidden slide or a toggle switch, which is really of a surprise, at least for me, on an XT-50, is this one, the flash one. I never knew this tiny fellow actually had a flash packed into it. Unbelievable, and it's so handy, especially in a low light area where I'm actually, want to take a photo. I did not carry my flash along with me. I don't want to carry a bulk flash with me. This small one is good enough to get that awesome image and then just walk off from there. But yes, be careful if you're trying to take images of small children or animals, especially nocturnal animals, which are not supposed to have flashes being put on their eyes. So normally I actually have it in the off position. I don't switch it on at all, but this toggle also plays in such an area that you would not accidentally actually open it up. You have to voluntarily do it, and very rarely I've ever accidentally opened up this toggle and opened up the flash. But it's good to have, it's better to have than not to have, and it's a small thing just packed in there. Good on you, Fujifilm. So all in all, this is a very neat compact camera, giving you an umpty amount of flexibility of trying to do things. The two functional modes that are there, I've actually programmed this particular function button for starting the video. Video recording started, so yes, it actually has this red frame to tell you that video recording has started, and I can always press it and say, video recording is actually stopped. So the top one I've actually configured in the video mode as face detection on and off. So quickly, if I'm shooting any humans, I would actually have the face detection on. Otherwise, I'm going to just switch it off and move on and do, normal kind of a video when I'm shooting an animal or a dish or a freshly cooked meal or a car or a bike. If you would like to know how I've actually customized my XT-50, please do drop in the comments. I'm going to make a separate video about it so you can see all my custom settings for my XT-50. At the same time, in the future videos, I would be actually showing what are all the menu systems available in the XT-50 and how they can actually, aid you in generating some awesome content. Until the next video, take care, stay safe, happy snapping.